There's been some news that has popped out in the last, I don't know, 24 to 48 hours ish, give or take, that are regarding major Xbox first party games. One of which is a report from Tom Warren where he has reported that according to his sources, Xbox is moving forward to get Gears of War E-Day out in 2025. And that is, I don't know if I agree or even believe it. I'll tell you why very simply. 2026 is going to be supposedly the launch of the new Xbox. More importantly, though, that is the official 20th anniversary of the IP. So I don't necessarily know if it makes business sense if you're going to release Gears of War E-Day next year when you can hold it back and release it with your new console running at potentially a ridiculously benchmarked Unreal Engine 5 from the Coalition. And of course, you were launching it right alongside its 20th anniversary. That to me makes sense. But Silent, on the heels of that, we have a report here from Clobreel. Now, again, this is, of course, unconfirmed, but based on the LinkedIn for one of the actors, or the voice actors for Clockwork Revolution, it's releasing in 2025. That is pretty ridiculous. Now, I say all of that to say, I sent you guys a list of what 24 and 25 look like for Xbox. And I kind of want to, I can easily just do a flash screen, but when you hear it, it's more punch to the throat. And this is what we know is coming this year. And we do have some confirmation on some of the games next year, too possible. Check this out. Listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. This list, it is so ridiculous that it almost seems unfair, to be quite honest. So let me break it down for you, Silent. We had Hellblade 2 already, which was phenomenal. You have Avowed, you have Indiana Jones, you have Aura History Untold, Towerborn, 33 Immortals, Flight Sim 2024, and Stalker 2, which, again, according to PlayStation gamers, if it's only on that platform or PC, it's considered an exclusive, so I'm going to count it. Stalker 2 is not on PlayStation 5 or Switch. It's an exclusive. Now, there is a tower defense one that I could not remember the name that, again, doesn't appeal so much to me. They showed it at the show. What the hell was the name of that tower defense one? There's one more. That is your stack deck for 2024. But I actually think 2025 looks even more ridiculous. Now, again, there are a couple of confirmations here, and there are two that we're kind of not sure about. Gears of War E-Day, based on the report, is next year. I don't believe it, but I'm putting it in there. South of Midnight confirmed for 2025. Fable confirmed for 2025. Doom: The Dark Ages confirmed for 2025. Call of Duty next confirmed, because they're going to release a Call of Duty next year in 2025. And now Clockwork Revolution. What are we doing? What are we actually doing? This is ridiculous. Let's talk about it.
So I guess I do actually have a question with you, because you mentioned Call of Duty next, and I know that some of the conversation we had in the past that we had heard, we had heard that obviously they were going to try and get away from doing that every year cadence. Now, I know obviously they have multiple dev studios that are working on these, so when you've got that pipeline, you're going to have a handful of things just landing like back to back. That's what it's going to be.
Yep.
But it actually kind of surprises me a little bit that we would see another Call of Duty as soon as next year, just because of them kind of mentioning maybe that pushing away from that yearly cadence. If we do see it, though, I mean, the thing is like, as long as the dev time is there, as long as the team that's working on it has a few years to flesh something out, then cool. Like, by all means. if it's not ready for that, if they're still shifting from like the old way of thinking over there at ActiBliz with those games, then like give it the time it needs if it needs more. Even just with the couple titles that we're talking about already, even if you didn't have Gears of War E-Day in there, you think of something like South of Midnight, Fable, Doom, those three on their own, those are huge. Those are huge. And the whole idea that
Yeah.
Microsoft was talking about was doing one big release every quarter, right? So that's 3 quarters already full. So it's like it's wild to me the fact I remember as we were watching that show on Sunday that every time something popped up as 2025, I was like, dear God. Like this year is already full, but
Yep.
next year is already insane. And it's just like if you add something like Gears into that, which with the anniversary I could see it, but again, I'd argue the same thing. If it's not ready yet, don't push it.
Yep.
Just leave it be. If you don't hit that anniversary, it is what it is. Release. I mean, let's be honest. They're going to release a controller. They'll probably release a headset. They'll do some anniversary stuff anyways.
Yeah.
So they could do that stuff. You don't have to release the game if it's not ready. Let it do its thing. Let it bake. When it's ready, it's ready. Um, but this next year is unreal. Like those are big titles. We have a lot of stuff coming this year, but I would argue those three that we talked about already, those games are massive,
Yeah.
like in scale compared to the remainder of what we have this year. Like Avowed is going to be big. We know that for sure. Indiana Jones seems to be. But when you put that up against those other titles, like stuff like Doom and Fable, like that's a different conversation altogether, I feel like. So it's going to be nuts next year. I'm curious to see what else gets announced for next year because it wouldn't surprise me if there's quite a few things still in in planning stage to determine if they can hit 2025. But
Yeah, I mean, listen. Okay, so we do have a topic on the back end that we're going to get into because this year is far from over. Remember, we're still in June, right? Gamescom is August. We have now, whether you believe me, you don't, and I think that he is very believable. Paris Lilly, he said that this show was a 9.5 out of 10. It was a 10 out of 10, right? Fine. He also said that he actually came on the show. I think it was might have been Monday he was on, and he said that they had more to show, they just couldn't fit it in. Look to Gamescom. And now we're getting
yeah,
reports that Gamescom is going to hit like a ton of bricks. And well, we're going to get into that as well because damn, like
boom.
are you kidding me? Yeah, but please continue.
And that makes a lot of sense too, right? Because we saw a lot of other people playing replaced while they
Yep.
were out there, right?
Yep.
That thing was nowhere to be found in that showcase whatsoever,
Nope.
which kind of made me think like it's super close to releasing. 33 Immortals wasn't in the show, but again,
Nope.
it just finished a beta, and we know that it's really close. And then you also had Towerborn, which we did not see in the proper showcase, but we were hearing initially from like all over the internet that maybe it was going to be a drop, like a shadow drop during the
Yeah.
show. So there's a lot of stuff pointing to, like you said, Gamescom by that time, or if not, maybe before, we're gonna see a lot more stuff prepared. It feels like it's gonna be nuts.
Yeah. It goes back to 2022 where Matt Booty was quoted, not in an interview, he was talking. And he said specifically, we have so many games, we just don't know where to put them. And obviously, he got a lot of crap for it because 2022 was not a great year for Xbox. They had to delay almost all of their major games, so it wound up being, it was context versus timing, right? That's what wound up happening with that. And now 2 years later, here's the showcase, and we're like, yeah, now we know exactly what he was talking about. Maybe he was telling the truth, but such is life. Listen, I'm going to get to the super chats, ladies and gentlemen, in a second. I do want to just get to Fuzzy and get his hot take on this because, again, the list is just ridiculous. And someone actually had put it into the chat. trying to see what that the name of that third game of the RTS. Yeah, Arc 2 is this year. I don't know, Vincent. I am not exactly sure.
I
Age of
don't
Mythology.
think so.
That's it. Thank you. I don't remember who
Yeah.
said it, but
Yeah.
that's the other one. Now, again, that's not a game for Boom. But when you see the people, like for instance, Pong Soul, like he's an RTS guy. And obviously Aura, he's become a PC guy right now. He's going to be playing Aura. He's going to be playing Age of Mythology. He digs those kind of things. That's his jam. So for him, it's a winner, chicken dinner. But look, let me go back to the list. Now, again, I do agree with Silent Cypher where we can't really say for sure that there's going to be another Call of Duty, but I'm just assuming. Now, if I make an ass out of myself, it's fine. I'll call myself to the carpet and point at myself that I was wrong. Not a problem. But let's just for shits and giggles, what 2025 is potentially looking like. Again, based on the story and the report from Tom Warren, Microsoft, specifically Xbox, is positioning Gears of War E-Day for 2025. I don't believe it, but it's fine. I put it on the list. South of Midnight. That game is one of my most anticipated games for next year. Holy shit, did that game look amazing. That's coming. Fable, let's effing go, ladies. Are you serious? Like, wow. Did that show and punch like Mike Tyson, right? Doom the Dark Ages. I mean, do I even need to have a comment after that? And of course, Call of Duty, we're assuming. And then, of course, the new report from this morning. It makes sense because when we saw Clockwork Revolution last year, it looked ready, right? It honestly looked ready. Here we go that could be a 2025 title. Bro, I am telling you, if PlayStation shows up to the party with one first-party game for the entire year, someone might be getting fired again. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a little, I would say a little doom and gloom over on the blue side of things. But yeah, for as far as for 2024 and 2025, it's already stacked up. And I was waiting for somebody to make mention of Clockwork Revolution as well, because that's one that just slides in there as well. And then I had like a small list of some of the other ones that haven't been mentioned in either 24 or 25 that we know are fairly close, like Contraband. Contraband's another one. The OD game from Kojima. I think that's closer than what people think. So I kind of thought it may have shown up this year. It's still possible that it could show up at the Tokyo Game Show and have a release at that point in time. But I think that game is a lot closer than, let's say, Death Stranding 2. But as far as for 2025, at that point, is Project Mara possibly being a smaller experience, possibly ready at that point? I think that one started around the same time as Hellblade 2, maybe a little bit afterwards. So it's already got a couple of years under its belt. If it's a smaller experience that it seems like they were gearing towards, that's one that could show up in 25 as well. We still haven't heard anything from Double Fine. And I know that there's 2 projects, if not 3, that's in the works. And I would assume that one of those 3 is probably closer as within the next, let's say, 18 months kind of deal. So they could show up for 2025 as well, or on the back end of 24. There's also, let's see, some of the other projects that they've teamed up with other teams, like Project Shaolin, which we have yet to see, which I think they're probably saving that as a shadow drop kind of game. It is going to be like a smaller Wu-Tang ARPG type game.
Yep.
Yeah, it will have a set audience and stuff, but I think they're saving that as like a either end of the year surprise or possibly something early on for 2025. So we'll probably see something along those lines, possibly soon. I'm still on the timeline of Forza Horizon 6 being 26. I was hoping we'd get to see a peek of it at this past showcase, but it's definitely going to be showed some point next year. But I've always been saying that Fable should be a 2025 title, just figuring from some of the info we've heard on the background as far as how far along that was and where they were as far as the visuals and things like that. So that all of that information panned out to be true so far. So yeah, it seems like it's going to stick to the 2025, which, by the way, without ratting anybody out, to speak on the showcase that we just saw, as far as the amount of stuff that was cut, several people in the know were saying that when they first started and had to, start cutting back, it was a 3.5 hour show. So if that gives you any insight onto how much is left over, that's probably why Gamescom is going to be bigger than most years. Like Gamescom is normally where we get to see new controllers or like the new, elite controller kind of thing, or at least in the past few years, it's been like that. And yeah, there's like 1 or 2 games, but usually there are games that are like either PC first. Like I think that's where we saw like the Gears Tactics. That's where we saw, I think, the original Age of not Age of Mythology, but Age of Empires 2 and whatnot. We're at like Gamescom. So Gamescom has a lot of leftovers from this showcase that didn't make the cut, which is, it's going to be interesting to see. Like if those games didn't make the cut.
I didn't even hear that. That's news.
It's still going to be a fantastic show, considering for the fact that they have all of those additional games. Like I think there's the big problem that we're going to have as gamers is going to be getting through the backlog. Like if you haven't already started attacking your backlog, you're probably going to get buried before this year is out. But that's the great thing with it being in Game Pass, as far as, especially for the first party stuff, it stays there. So you can, play it at any time, get around to it. Like you may not get to Avowed this year because you're focusing on waiting for Indiana Jones and you're still going through like the Starfield DLC. That's fine. Avowed will still be there for you. Now, the key thing would be to play Avowed before, Outer Worlds 2 comes out, which that one, I don't know if that's going to be a late 2025 or early 2026 kind of game. But I think based on how Obsidian has been working, where they've been able to release a game pretty much almost every year, and they have the team in which to do that, and they've staggered things accordingly, I wouldn't be surprised if Outer Worlds 2 is in 2025 or at worst 2026. But there's so much that we've seen that we know that is still in the oven and probably close to being done. Everwild is probably the one that's the bigger question mark, as far as, because I know they've had to reset the mechanics of the game or what the game was actually intended to be, type of deal. But outside of that, there's so many teams within the Xbox studios and even within Bethesda, because we still haven't seen Bethesda's online teams game, whether that's an extension of like something like Starfield, but an MMO, or if it's a licensed IP. That's still let's put it this way, from inside info. Well, not they won't tell us what it is, but the fact that they're saying it's probably going to be bigger than what we've seen so far, that should give you an idea. If they think it trumps Doom, I would say be prepared for whatever Bethesda Online has to offer, type of deal.